Hey guys, how are you? Come on into the room. It has been so long. I feel like I almost would say something like I feel like I haven't been on here forever. But yeah, it's like a bicycle. Once you get off and you haven't been on in a while, you can get back on and you're still the same. So hi guys. I missed you. I really did. Thank you for your patience. For anybody who tried to get on last week and I wasn't on, lots of stuff that was happening, and I was not able to really go ahead and I had to travel for work, and I still assumed I was going to be able to do my live, so I did not announce anything because in my mind I could do it all, right? And you know how we are, we could do everything, right? And so I didn't announce that, but I wasn't able to. And as soon as I realized I wasn't able to, I told you guys as soon as possible. So please take my forgiveness. Please accept my forgiveness for the people who came on to show up for me coming live and I wasn't there. I apologize. I tried to put I tried to put a banner on or some type of something as soon as I realized that I wasn't going to be able to come on. So I hope that you guys saw it and it didn't cause too much confusion. Like I said, it was a lot going on. It was a lot going on. So missed you guys though. I missed you. I hope you guys had a good week. While I'm sharing, guys, I'm sharing on my Facebook. While I'm sharing, I want you to share because again, this is a conversation we all need to have. And don't be stingy. Let people know what's going on because I'm telling you, this is a topic you're going to want to talk about. I don't know if you saw the topic, but today we're talking about trauma. I decided that I don't know if you guys saw that I launched on 2/22. I launched my trauma triage class. I announced that I was going to be doing that starting March 21st. Still some spaces available. And one thing I realized is that I got a lot of questions. And some of the questions were like, I don't know if this is qualifying, me for it. And I had people that were like, I don't think that I deal with trauma. And I knew a couple of things that did, in fact, qualify as trauma. And so I felt like, what, maybe it's necessary for me to speak on some things that maybe we don't realize is trauma and go into it. And some of these things are quite controversial. So I'm going to lead into that. Today's topic is controversy. It's talking about the trauma that's involved in parenting. And I know this is such a bad word because we our kids are gifts from God and they're amazing and wonderful. I would never link trauma and parenting and my children together in the same sentence. And I know you wouldn't, but I'm going to be a little bit more real. And I'm going to show you how, even if it doesn't apply to you, how it can apply and how just because you say that doesn't mean that your child is still not a blessing, doesn't mean that you don't think that they're a blessing, and how this is real and we need to talk about it, right? So that's what we're talking about today. So please share this with somebody because I'm telling you, every single person in your life is affected by this. Everybody, there's nobody that isn't. And sometimes we don't even realize how much we need this information. So please share as I'm sharing. I'm sharing. You go ahead, share. Hey, Mom, love you. Come on and let. Yes, I'm stopping in the live to do this because I just really feel like this is a worthy conversation, and I don't think we do it enough. I think I did my news feed and then conversations from Paris. And I just feel like we gloss over it, and then people that are really suffering don't feel like they have a way to just be honest about it, and then they suffer in silence, right? And this is where I'm going to make that different. You're gonna be able to talk about this. This is a real thing, and there's not going to be no shame attached to it, right? There's going to be no shame attached. So anyway, again, I'm so grateful that you guys are here today. I feel like this is a great topic. Let me tell you how this topic came up, right? So my bundle of joy, Makai, if you guys don't know, I have a son that is in Morehouse right now. Woo-hoo, and his name is Makai Johnson. And he is the love of my life as far as, my son, my only child. And I love everything about him. I was blessed to be able to parent him. And his birthday is in 2 days. So he came down to see me from school. He's on a spring break, and I'm so excited and ecstatic that he's here. So y'all already know what I feel like. It's a whole anniversary. I mean, like a whole party, right? It's a whole celebration. So I'm excited that he came and decided to come and spend his time with me. I don't know if I had a better gift that I could give him. He's not supposed to be giving me gifts on his birthday, but it's still a gift to me that he decided to come with me. And I'm just grateful he's here. And so I was on not YouTube, it was TikTok the other day. I was on TikTok. And while I was on TikTok, there was a story that had to do with it was a story that had to do with a birth, a very difficult birth that happened. And while the mother had been very excited and grateful that her child was born and that she was able to have a healthy birth, she was talking about how some of the postpartum stuff really got to her. And not just that, but the stress around the birth, from her pregnancy to after she had the baby, and some other things. And she was feeling guilty about talking about how she felt about it, because of course having a child was a blessing, and she felt like a lot of people were trying to have children, and how dare she complain about the very thing that a lot of people aren't able to do. And so what I found that was amazing was that if she was talking about her truth, there were people on there that really, like, to me, I believe humanity was shown in this conversation. And what I mean about humanity shown, people came into the comments and were like, hey, you're not alone in this. We all deal with this. You don't love your child any less because you feel this way. Don't you feel bad about sharing your truth? We've all been there before, and it's okay to have these conversations, right? And so I was so proud of humanity that day, right? I was so stinking proud of humanity that day, right? Because some days I'm like, we are gross. But this day I was like, thank God people were nice and kind, because they could have destroyed her in the comments about having these feelings. You know how people are sometimes so self-righteous. And so she goes on and she kind of burst into tears as her response. She said, I didn't expect to get this much love. She said, I wish I would have known this with my first child, right? She said, because I felt this way before with all of my children, and I felt like I could never speak on it because it would mean that I didn't love my children and I wasn't a good mom. And then this hit me in the chest, because how many, and this is not just about women, how many parents have had a hard time from conception, that means from the time that you found out you were pregnant, through the pregnancy, through the birth, after the pregnancy, and even through the parenting cycle, have had a hard time and did not feel that you had an outlet to talk to about some of your realest, truest feelings. To me, it is probably the biggest lie. I'm going to use that I know that word doesn't feel good, but I'm going to say it. I think it's the biggest lie that we tell, is that the people that we love, the experiences we've had around parenting, giving birth, having a child, we don't tell the truth about how hard it is. And I think we fear judgment. And I think we fear judgment because it's there, right? It's there. People do judge all day, every day for how you parent your child, right? But I also think, and this is something I figured out myself, is that there was judgment that I used to give before I was in that situation, right? I'll give you an example. You ever been in a mall, you see somebody that the kids acting up and running around, you're like, oh my God, I wish they'd get that child together. They just have no control. They can't get it together a lot. And you just, you make a split decision judgment about what's going on with them. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here acting like Mother Teresa, because I'm not going to say I haven't still have those thoughts from time to time. And even if I believe that they're true, imagine a child being autistic. Imagine a child having special needs. Imagine a mother that's exhausted, who hasn't slept for the last 3 or 4 days, and she's just trying to get her other child an outfit for her recital, and the other child is just not doing well, but she knows she only has 15 minutes to do this. Maybe, just maybe, she just doesn't have it in her today to do that. And however this is playing out, she has to let it play out so she can get done what she needs to get done. I never thought like that before. I never gave the ability for that to be a situation. And I don't think that we give each other enough of that grace. Okay. And so I feel like it becomes this really scary world that we live in, where people can't share their truth without criticism. It's a scary world where people can't share about the things that are hard without feeling condemned. And I feel like the only time that we celebrate people telling the truth is when they go off. And it's like, oh, I can't stand it. And then people are like, I understand, I would explode too if that happened. And I understand. But let's get to a point. I mean, just maybe a fictional point, right? Maybe this doesn't exist in all situations, but let me just dream, okay? What if we started being honest about these things way sooner than a blow up happening? And what if we made a safe space for us to share and be honest about these things, so that there would never be, or not never, but we'll have very much fewer occurrences of the blow ups, because we would make peace with our feelings. We would feel the feelings, release them, and make peace with the fact that we had them, right? Versus what I think people are doing now is pretending that these feelings are not there, pretending that they don't feel the stressors of life, pretending that things never get hard, pretending that there's never moments where they want to throw the towel in, right? And I know if there's anybody who's saying, well, Paris, let me get out of here, because I don't have children. I'm not able to feel you on that note, right? This is not my situation. Well, don't you run just yet. Let me tell you why. Because not only do you have friends that have this situation, and people that you know, and family that you know, but the one thing about humanity is that we all have parents, whether you know them or not, whether you are adopted or not, whatever you're in foster care or not, we all have had parents. And so we're talking about trauma, and we're talking about parenting. And so even if you don't have a child as of yet, or don't, ever think you're going to have a child, this conversation is not excluding you, because there are even things that you have to be honest about that happen in your upbringing and in your parenting. And then this is always a hard subject for me to penetrate into people, because people, especially in our community, I believe that we try to reverence our parents, and as you should, right? I believe honor is given, and we need to make sure that we continue to do that. I have two wonderful parents that sacrificed so much for me and my family, and I don't know, and I can't imagine life without them. And I'm grateful to have my parents. They're still alive and well. I'm blessed to have them every day. And so with that being said, I can be honest and say that if I was to talk to them about maybe them being ready for parenting, maybe if they had any concerns or issues, things that popped up, and even current things, I just believe we would be able to find some common ground there, right? And again, you can be an adult with amazing parents and still say, you know what? I wonder how my parents dealt with this. I wonder how would they afforded the same grace during the time period when they had children, right? Because mind you, different generations, different societal norms, different psychological views, mental capacities, all these different things are happening at different times. And so it's always interesting for me to think like generationally, like what did my grandmother go through when she had children? My grandmother had 12 children, and it's like, oh my God, I had one. I could not imagine, right? What did she go through? What was life like? What's her mental status like? Did she ever have time to herself? Was she ever able to feel like she could just breathe? Was there guilt around not maybe having enough time for everybody? Did she get to take a spa day? Did she get to do anything that she liked? I wonder about those things, right? My mother, like, I wonder, with having four of us, I wonder, did she have time to take a vacation? I know the answer to these questions, but these are things that I wonder, like, yes, you make sacrifices for your children, but what was the cost of that, right? How did your mental health suffer at all? Yes, you love your children. You would not change a thing about it. I know that's what we say. But can we just get real, y'all? Can we get real and be honest about these things? Because what's happening is you're watching people suffer in silence because they won't talk about the reality of these pain points. And if we're not going to talk about the reality of these pain points, then you will never really be healed. You won't. If you're afraid to air yourself out, and recognize. Let me tell you something that I learned. And again, this is different for everybody. And I'm not saying everybody should have this, but when I was going through therapy, the one thing I loved was being able to come to some hard truths and deal with those truths and try to heal from those truths. The cool part was being able to then, to me, talk about it, right? Because there's no longer, I'm not afraid to say that I struggled with that or still struggle with that, right? And I think if you don't have the ability or you don't feel like you have the grace to say it, I don't know if you'll get past it. And like for me, I think just being able to acknowledge that that was a thing, that was hard, that hurt, that you had to sacrifice, that might have been a struggle moment and period for you. If you're not able to say it, then I don't think you can open up that can of worms of what those feelings were, where your mental status was, and be honest about if you really ever dealt with those things head on. I think these conversations sometimes only happen with your best friend, or it might happen with one of the other parents that you're really close to. and then very hush hush, and it might only happen over a glass of wine, right? Um, and then we qualify those statements so much. But I love my children. I would never change a thing. And we do it so quick that we don't allow ourselves to feel what that was like. Paris, what do you want? Well, I'm glad you asked me. I want to affect a generation. I want to bring up a conversation, because my theory and thought is that a conversation can shift your whole perspective and it can start your journey to healing. I would like to have you acknowledge that trauma is not just somebody dying on you. Trauma is not just you being robbed at gunpoint. Trauma is not your house burning down. Trauma is not you going into war. That's not the only thing trauma is. I tried to explain that. There's so many different things there are. It's just really something that has caused emotional distress, an event that's big enough to mark a period in your life. There's a real definition of, I'll get into that later, but I'm just giving you guys like a paraphrase thing here. And so, as much as we would never want to say that, I believe that a lot of people have dealt with the trauma of parenting. Let me break down a couple of steps here. Let's go to the point of conception. How many people had a very unplanned pregnancy? Unplanned. It was unplanned. My pregnancy was unplanned. Absolutely unplanned. I was at college. I was a senior in college at the time. Did not mean to get pregnant. Was not my intention. And I think there's so much shame around that too, right? People are always act as though they always knew, and like, kudos for you if for you were trying. That's great. But there's so many people that were not trying and get pregnant. And it doesn't mean they love their children any less. It just is their reality. It's their story, right? But let's go to the point where it happened, right? Let's go to the point where you didn't plan to get pregnant and that wasn't your plans and it disrupted your plans at the time, right? I was in school at the time. Some people were in the process of moving at the time. Some people were about to start retirement. I know people who were literally had a child when they were 20 and then they had a child unexpectedly when they were like 45, right? They love both children the same, but that was definitely something they didn't expect and plan, right? And so there has to be a moment, and y'all hate to talk about y'all situations. Let me talk about mine. There has to be a moment where we're honest about what that did to you. Not necessarily being ready. And this has nothing to do with the responsibility of it all, right? I mean, let's talk about it, right? Oh, parents, if you weren't ready, shouldn't you have, protected yourself and all those things? Wonderful. All those things, great. Yeah. Yeah. All of that's true. But after that happens and you're already in the situation, it's not a point of why did it happen. It's a point of what does that leave you mentally? Because y'all, like, come travel with me, guys. I'm using myself as an example because nobody will be honest about what this does mentally. Let me even take myself out of it. Let's talk about the Tupac song, Brenda Had a Baby, right? Brenda Had a Baby, right? Everybody heard of that song, right? Brenda had a baby, and you see this little young girl that's pregnant walking around. Everybody judged her and all of this stuff. But I feel for Brenda because who knows what her home life was like? Who knows what her parental structure was? And not to blame it on them, but like, what if her home life was not nurturing for her to feel that she had to go outside of the home to get that love and care, right? Or maybe she did have a wonderful home life, right? But then now she made a decision that was a split-second decision that changed the whole course of her life. And although a child is a blessing, Brenda wasn't mentally prepared for that. Brenda was still just a child herself. Like, why don't we have these conversations, right? Brenda was still a child herself. Now Brenda has to now hurry up and mature, hurry up and try to figure out life. And she's a little immature. And she was with this guy, and he don't want nothing to do with her child. And she thought she was in love. And he walked away, and now he's just leaving her to deal with it. Guess what Brenda's dealing with? She's dealing with rejection. She's dealing with abandonment. She's dealing with this hurry up and mature because now you've made a decision that has thrust you into adulthood. She's dealing with the reality that now she has this child that she's not even sure that she wants. Let's be honest, we don't want to talk about these talks. And then we wonder why you see people who hurt their children. This is not an excuse. I'm just being honest. If we have these conversations, maybe we can offer more support. So when people are in these situations, we can give them help, right? Because in the video, you saw her walking down the street by herself and rubbing her stomach. What was going through her head? You know, what was her mental status? Was she gonna be good enough? Did the baby even deserve her as a mother? How is she gonna be? Is it gonna be another statistic? Because she in the hood, low income, have a baby now. I don't have anybody to help me. I'm barely surviving myself, and now I brought another child into this world. How are we gonna do it? I'm taking you through this because I want us to be honest. That was Brenda, but if you talk to enough people, most people don't plan a pregnancy, even if they have good money, good jobs. A lot of people just don't plan it. So even if you're married, even if you have good job, all that, if you were prepared for it particularly, and let me be clear, I know that you can never be 100% prepared for it, but even if you did not kind of put yourself in the mindset that this is what I want to do, how do we carry that load? What does that look like? And let's be honest, what happens if Brenda or whoever it is already was dealing with living in poverty, which is a trauma? She might have been dealing with a broken home life, which is a trauma. She's now dealing with the guy leaving and not saying he's not going to be there for the child, which is a trauma. And she's dealing with all of that at the same time as this child coming into the earth, right? So what do we expect her mind to be like? We expect her to have a good emotional intelligence quotient so she can deal with life's things? Or are we honest about her not really being prepared for this moment? And because she's not prepared for this moment, it is traumatic to her. I've heard people and women, men say this before. Sometimes parenting, some days you're going to have days where it's really hard. And that's so true. And you have days when you cry yourself to sleep because you just don't know what to do because these kids come with no manual, right? And then we just say this is part of it. You just don't really get to cry. You just wipe your tears and do it because you don't take a day off. But I think even there's trauma to that, right? There's trauma to the idea that you get no day off from parenting and you have to push through. And some days are really enough to break you mentally. Why don't we give grace for that? Why are we not real about that? How many parents feel okay with saying that and then feel okay enough with saying that thing? I need to go see somebody or I need to get some support because I'm not okay. Listen, y'all, people get on social media, people get on TikTok, all these things, and people say, oh, people just putting all their business out here. They need a diary. They need to talk to somebody. And I used to say that too. I did. However, what if that person doesn't feel like they have anybody? Or what if they don't have anybody? And they have come to use this as a cry out, sometimes a final cry out, because they just don't know what else to do. What if that person is crying on your live that you think is so dramatic? Instead of you saying, hey, baby girl, put on your big girl panties and figure it out, because I had to figure it out and I had 6 kids and you only got 1. That's such a harsh, graceless, merciless response. What if we then, on the other hand, met her with, if not on the live, maybe an inbox that said, hey, I know it's hard, but you'll get through this. Hey, I support you. Hey, we've all had these days. If you need somebody to talk to, here's my number. Hey, don't be afraid to, if you need help, you're having really a dark moment, let's call somebody. Hey, let's reach out. What if we had that level of compassion? And this is not just for women, right? So, and I'm gonna go a little further, and I'm gonna bring the men in here too, right? So, like I talked about, like what happens when you didn't plan for pregnancy, or what happens when you have a rough pregnancy. Let's talk about that. They talk about that a lot in my psychology classes. It's about what happens when the pregnancy was complicated. You had a lot of complications. It does affect the attachment syndrome between the parent and the child. And that's psychologically like documented, right? It is harder, not to say it can't happen. It's just, it becomes harder. And so, if that's something that's documented, let's think about the repercussions of you having this really, really difficult pregnancy and you trying to connect with your child in the way that's nurturing, and you feel like I know some people who almost died from childbirth, like for real, like it was life or death. Let's be clear, there have been a lot of women that died in childbirth, so it's a real thing. And there's been people that's almost died and it really like almost took their life. So imagine the whole idea of, okay, this thing almost took me out and then now I have a child here. I have to be mom for this child, but did I ever get a moment to recover? That's a trauma. Or vice versa. What if my child came out and they really had to fight for their life? I know a lot of people that's in the NICU, a lot of people that's fighting with the neo nurses, all the things that they trying to nurture their children so they can get the best care. And on top of everything else we just talked about, then you also have the trauma of your child not that fighting for their life, right? What guilt has to go there, right? What guilt is there in that moment, right? And so I look, y'all, I'm just giving y'all all the trauma points, right? I'm just giving y'all all the trauma points. So we talked about the idea of getting pregnant unexpectedly. We talked about, or what about people that deal with IF, right? I know a lot of people who have, or just trying to get pregnant, deal with multiple miscarriages, dealt with all type of complications. Do we talk about the trauma of that? It's trauma, right? Okay, so I'm just giving y'all some points here because I know somebody wants to say, Paris, there's no trauma. My pregnancy was great, wonderful. Okay, so let's say your pregnancy was wonderful. Your child came out wonderful. You came out wonderful. Great, life is good. What about after you have that child? What about the real sleep deprivation that happens in those first, I was about to lie and say the first 6 months. Then I realized that I really feel like I didn't get real sleep again until my son was about, I don't know. I don't even know. I was at 4 or 5. Because even if they sleep through the night, you grow what I call a mother's ear, or maybe we'll just say a parent's ear, where you don't sleep as hard as you used to sleep because that child can wake up any moment and you need to be attentive and ready just in case anything happens. And so, sheesh, I wish someone would have told me really about the sleep. That was a whole thing for me because I probably didn't get enough sleep prior to that. And then being thrust into getting even less. Man, when you don't get your sleep, your body doesn't even function the way it needs to function correctly. Right? Your the quality of life goes down. And yes, of course you're doing it for your children, but let's just be honest about that. You probably get a little crankier. I've had some days when I sat in the car and I cried. I had moments where I broke down at work because I'm tired. I had moments where I couldn't make my child eat something and I cried. And we don't talk about this because these are like these badges of honor that you wear because I'm a great mother and I love my child and I never can really admit that this is freaking hard. I can't admit that I had a rough day and I just really wish I could just hand this child off to somebody else, like my mama, or like, I don't know. I don't really care. If I could hand it to the janitor and know my janitor would do well with my child, I would. Like, these are the moments where we can't talk about them because there's so much shame to not being able to handle this parenting obstacle course, this triathlon that's called parenting, right? You have to be the PTA mother. You got to be the somebody that bakes the cupcakes from scratch. You got to be the person who goes to every recital. That you got to be the cheer mom. You got to be the football mom, and you got to volunteer at every event. You got to talk to the teachers and know all of them by name. And then also be able to, keep whatever job you have, or if you don't have a job and you are working from home or you're a stay-at-home mother, your house has to be immaculate. You have to come up with these wonderful lunches. Like, can we be real about this? It's a lot. It's a whole of a heck of a lot. It's a lot. And I think we have so many people that want to wear the badge of I conquered it. I had a child and they came out pretty good, so I think they did a pretty good job. Or I love my child and I would never speak against the process because the process is what made it. Can we just be honest about these moments and what it does to our mental health, right? Can it not be a comparison game? Can it not be that I did this better than that person did it, or they're better than me in this area? Can we not be measured by our children's accomplishments? My child got straight A's and got into the school, so I did this. Which is amazing that happened. And I do give kudos to you if that's your child. Absolutely. Listen, trust me, I feel amazing about that. But what if your child did everything they could and they're barely passing? How does that child feel? Or how does the parent feel? Are they beating themselves up? Do they feel like they have to be a horrible parent because they weren't able to figure out the equation of success in school for their child? Listen, y'all, I've been on both spectrums of that. So let me be clear. I know. I'm not talking about something I don't know. And then, so I've talked about like some of the stuff with the women. Let's talk about the man. Like, you want to be protectors and providers and expected to be there, be the protector of your child. But then what happens when you barely are able to grasp your emotional components and understand and be honest and feel your emotional intelligence and be able to tap into it, and yet you're expected to be there for your child and be emotionally available for them? be able to deal with when your girl comes to you about when she has her first period, or when she thinks about having sex for the first time and you want to kill somebody, or thinking about your son when he's having an identity crisis about, if he really wants to play football or if he wants to go into dance, and you're not knowing how to react or respond to that. Like, how do we deal with that? Hey, Alicia, girl. Oh, that's good. Okay. Alicia, you said, no, that's good. How do we not beat ourselves up when they're not achieving to your standards? Yes. That's what I mean, girl. Like, honestly, it's such a complicated, complex place to be, because you love your children, but there's all this guilt that comes with these ideas of expectations. And especially if you have these expectations that you want as well. Like, I want, everybody wants their child to do well. But then if they don't, do you feel like they're a failure? Or do you feel like you're a failure because you didn't get the equation right? Do you give yourself grace? Like, it's hard. Y'all, it's hard. I'm trying to tell you, it's super hard. And I just don't think we're as advanced as we think we are in these conversations. We just are not. We're not. In 2022, we're not having these real conversations where we need to. And you know why I know? Because there's a whole new generation of people that are parenting that feel alone and stuck, and they don't want to be, and they don't feel like they can be honest about how hard it is sometimes. Or when they are honest, people judge them. Or there are people who really are, like I was just talking about the fathers, right? Like, you're still trying to figure out your own emotional stuff, and then you're trying to actually correctly nurture your child into what you want, because maybe you feel like, I wish my father either would have been around, or I wish my father would have been able to be more emotionally available, or you don't even know what that looks like because you feel like that's not a man's job. So how do you even measure up? And then when your child tells you that they don't feel like you cared, you feel like, well, at least I was there, or at least I, never left, or at least I like funded your thing, and not thinking that you're just throwing it in their face, but you really like, this is what I thought it would look like to show up. And I tried to show up, and you still call me a failure. Like, how do you recover from that? So where am I coming from here? Where am I going from this? Trauma comes in so many different forms, and it's not a bad word. You know why I feel like it's not a bad word? Because we all deal with it. Like, let me tell y'all something. One of the reasons why I want, so if y'all don't know, I'm in school to be a therapist. And one of the things that I'm passionate about, and I call myself a mental health advocate, I'm passionate about erasing the stigma of mental health and mental illness, and understanding how to have more conversations to open up your perspective, to start your journey of healing. And so with that being the case, one of my specialties is going to be trauma. And the reason is going to be that I think one of the reasons, not the full reason, but y'all remember Ayanna, right? And I know a lot of people are against her, and a lot of the people in the whatever. You can feel how you want to about Ayanna. But let me tell you something I liked about Ayanna. Ayanna tackled trauma at a deep root level that people didn't want to go to. She tackled the ugly stuff, the stuff that hurt. She attacked the stuff that was embarrassing. She attacked the stuff that was skeletons in a closet. And I think a lot of people were triggered by Ayanna because she talked about that stuff that you would never talk about in your family. She talked about the stuff that you would never have the guts to be honest about. She used to say some things that were just so controversial, but they needed to be said. I will forever hail her as courageous, because what she knew is that you absolutely had to get into those dirty spaces in order to start the healing process. It's like a wound. You don't clean that wound out and get it in, and yes, it's going to hurt at first, but if you don't get in that wound and clean it out, you're going to just forever have a scar that's infected. And eventually you're going to have to amputate with that part of the body, or it's going to spread as a cancer and you're going to all die off. That's how important it is to deal with trauma. And so for me, I just see so many people that don't acknowledge their own traumas, and they don't acknowledge how it's spilling over into their life, and they don't understand how some things are so deep that it affects every relationship, affects their job, it affects their fight. I know people whose trauma is so deep that they don't even fight for themselves. I know people whose trauma is so deep that all they do is fight everybody because nobody ever fought for them. Y'all don't want me to talk about it. You don't want me to talk about it. What my pastor say, I'm not turning, you want me to turn my plow? I'm not turning the plow, because this is the stuff that we got to talk about. Yes, Alicia, you said the ugly stuff. The ugly stuff. That's the stuff we got to talk about. And to me, things are, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. What does that mean, Paris? I can say, I love my parents. I love my child, but parenting is hard. And I was not ready for it. Not only was I not ready for it, I struggled. And it did something to me mentally. And until I dealt with that, I couldn't even be the best mother I could be, because I wasn't honest about my feelings about it. Y'all don't want to get that deep. Y'all don't want to get that deep. Y'all don't want to get that deep. After I went to therapy and started dealing with that parenting thing and that wound, that trauma, baby, I apologized to my son about some stuff I did. I did. And then I forgave myself for a lot of things. And I had some real harsh truths that I had to be honest about. And then, you know what I really came out of it that was awesome is that I wanted to help other people get to this moment where they can be human and be honest about this thing and how it can affect you, and how that I can be a person that loves my children, but also struggle with this. So, yeah. I think that's all I want to say about it today, right now. Shameless plug. If you guys don't know, if you're under a rock somewhere, again, on the 22nd of February, 22222, I love the date, the time, I announced that I was going to be doing this new course. I just finished up my emotional intelligence course. That was amazing, amazing. I'm going to put some testimonials up soon. I had a lot of people asking me to do that one again. I will be doing it again. But before that, I wanted to do what I figure is the next best thing, which is it's going to be a course called Trauma Triage. Yes. And what Trauma Triage is going to do is a 6-week course that helps people to, number one, acknowledge, understand what trauma is, and acknowledge their own traumas. And I said traumas because I believe people have more than one trauma. Example, we just all came through Corona. That was a trauma. And I know some people don't agree with me because they think I'm oversimplifying the word. I'm not, but that's your choice. Again, if you don't talk about this stuff, you can't heal from it, right? So acknowledging your traumas, understanding what root issues are keeping you from going forward that came from the unresolved trauma, right? Because if you never dealt with it, then you have things that are stuck with you that are causing you not to move forward and not be able to be, in a healthy mental space, right? And then understanding what you need to do, what can you do to go ahead and start your healing journey. I think it's necessary. I honestly think everybody should do it. Y'all know I'm a huge component of therapy. This is not what am I trying to say? This is not a replacement for therapy, but however, if you're not yet necessarily ready to walk into a therapist's office, or if you're not ready yet to go talk to somebody, or if you have a therapist already, but you just want to do something extra, I absolutely believe this is going to be an amazing tool in your mental health toolbox to be able to process that stuff. And I believe there's too many people that don't process it. And I'm here to triage that trauma so that you can move forward and live a better life, right? Better holistic life that is much better self-adjusted, right? So if you guys need information, it is on my page. If you want more information, it's on www.parispjohnson.com. You can go there, sign up for my what is that called? You can sign up for my mailing list there. You can send me an email. You guys should know, I got it on the bottom here. You should know that I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and you can go to my website and even send me an email. All those things, I'll reply. If you have any questions about it, it starts on March 21st. I'm excited about it. It's going to be a small class because I like the intimacy of the smallness. And when I say small, nothing over 20 people, because I just don't think that's going to be beneficial. I said 10 at first, but I have so many people that want to be involved. So I'm trying to play with the numbers. I prefer 10, but I might let a few more in. But if you're serious about healing and starting the process of working this stuff out, this is going to be something that's going to help you out. So we're going to be talking about trauma all the way up until my course. Again, if you need more information, www.parispjohnson.com, or on any of my social media sites, you can send me a message. So I love you guys. Thank you for rocking with me. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for letting me into your household, into your hearts. Don't ever forget that you are enough. I'm not going to stop saying it. I'm going to say it every single time until you really believe it. You are enough. And because you are enough, invest in you. Put time and energy into you. You work on everybody else's stuff. You help everybody else out, but you don't help yourself out. You pour out your cup all the time, and you never, ever pour into your own cup, or you never allow somebody else to pour into your cup. 2022 is going to be a different year. Be intentional. Be purposeful. All right? Thank you, girl. I love you guys. See you, Alicia. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Have a great rest of your evening. I'll see you Thursday.